Good afternoon, Senate District 14. I'm State Senator Melissa Hurtado, and I want to welcome you to this CalSavers webinar. I represent the Southern Central Valley from Fresno to the city of Bakersfield in the South. I know you will get plenty of information from the Treasurer's Office that should clarify some of the new policy changes and requirements for business owners. I'd like to introduce California's 34th State Treasurer, Fiona Ma, who along with her office is helping us put on this webinar. Treasurer Ma is the first woman of color to be elected as a state treasurer and the first woman CPA to hold this office. The State Treasurer's Office provides financing for schools, roads, housing, recycling, and waste management, hospitals, public facilities, and other crucial infrastructure projects. Treasurer Ma, welcome. I know this is a virtual conversation today, but we know that you've been to the Central Valley before, and we know how much you are a fan of the Central Valley as well. So welcome to the Central Valley virtual CalSavers webinar.
Thank you, Senator Hurtado, and your staff for collaborating with us. And I was actually in Fresno 2 weekends ago. My sister just moved there and is having a baby. So you will have another resident in your district, and I will be back for a groundbreaking next week, back to Fresno. I love coming out there, and so thank you for your leadership and for representing. Today we are going to talk about CalSavers. It is a fairly new program that is administered by my office. We found out that there are about 7.5 million workers who do not have a retirement savings plan offered to them at their workplace. And so Senator Kevin De Leon and my predecessor, Treasurer John Chung, took 6 years to create this very important program to allow individuals to save for their retirement. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is that if you hire 5 or more employees, eventually you will have to sign your employees up with CalSavers, which again is administered by my office. And for the employers, once you sign up your employees, you will have no financial or legal liability going forwards. These accounts will stay with your employees. And so it's a great way to provide a benefit to them, to encourage them to save even during these pandemic times. We know that finances are tight for many individuals, but it is never too early to save. In the Central Valley, in Fresno, Kern, Kings, and Tulare counties, we estimate there are nearly 12,000 eligible employers with more than 360,000 eligible employees. And so we encourage everyone to spread the word. We thank everyone who is on the call here today. We will be sending this out virtually to more employers and employees in hopes that they will sign up for CalSavers. So again, thank you, Senator Hurtado, for collaborating with us, for your leadership. And I am now going to turn it over to Jonathan Herrera of our outreach team. Take it away, Jonathan.
Thank you, Treasurer Ma and Senator Hurtado, for that introduction. We're really excited to be joining you today and given this opportunity to speak to employers in your district. So we really appreciate your partnership. It's been a pleasure working with your staff to get this set up. And I think this is really important information to share with employers in your district to talk about how California is working to address this retirement savings access gap that the treasurer mentioned in her introduction. And yes, of course, talk about this new retirement mandate and how it affects employers in your district. So as you know, the treasurer mentioned and the senator as well, CalSavers is California's new retirement savings program designed for the millions of Californians who don't have a way to save for retirement at their job. As the treasurer mentioned, it was created by legislation that passed back in 2016 that requires California employers who do not sponsor a retirement plan if they have 5 or more employees to participate in the program, which is, again, designed as an automatic enrollment individual IRA account with no employer fees or fiduciary liability. And we know that employers have been facing unprecedented challenges over the last year and a half. So we want employers to know that, we are here to help by offering extra support and flexibility. And, we hear it a lot. Some people wonder why we're out promoting retirement savings while there are so many working and out of work Californians who are struggling to get by. But, in a way, we're really proud to be promoting this program during this period, because now more than ever, we see how vital it is for all of us to have financial resiliency in the short and long term. And CalSavers is designed to help workers on both of those measures. And I think with so many people working to overcome financial setbacks caused by the pandemic, a lot of the employers that we've been connecting with have been trying to focus their efforts on helping their employees improve their financial wellness and save for the future. They're also seeing this as an opportunity to recruit, retain, and reward their employees who either, as they're trying to find workers to come back, or as they're trying to figure out how to keep the ones they have. And one of the ways, obviously, that employers can do that is by adopting retirement plan benefits, whether it's through CalSavers or through a private sector plan. Before we get into the meat of the conversation, quickly on housekeeping, we have placed everyone on mute, but if you hover your mouse over the bottom of the screen, you'll find a question and answer box. My colleague, Carolina, is monitoring the question and answer box. If you have questions, please put them in there. We'll take some time at the end to answer them live. Also, everyone is going to receive a follow-up email from us, which will include a copy of the slides for your reference. But, my plan for this webinar is really to focus on this mandate and what CalSavers means for employers in your district. There's going to be some good information for employees too, and people for looking for ways to save for their future. But I'll start with a little bit of background on CalSavers and the mandate and the corresponding deadlines, which will be probably key takeaways for this. Then we'll talk about what employers need to do to register and facilitate the program. And then we'll share with you, of course, where you can get more information on the program if you wanted to connect with us afterwards. So usually we like to start just by going over in a little bit more detail the situation that the legislature was trying to address when they passed the legislation that created CalSavers. And what it comes down to is nearly half of Californians are projected to retire into economic hardship if they can retire at all. And we think that a key driver of that fact is that there's 7.5 million Californians who are going to work every day, playing by the rules, but lack access to a workplace-based retirement program. And that's particularly important because the research also shows that workers are 15 times more likely to be saving and be on a path towards retirement security if they have access to a payroll deduction savings plan at work. Just a simple way to automatically save from their paycheck. And that number actually goes up to 20 times more likely if the program features automatic enrollment, which is something the treasurer alluded to at the beginning, and that I'll talk in much more detail about in the coming slides. So knowing that the best way to get folks saving and on a path towards retirement security is through the workplace, the legislature passed Senate Bill 1234 back in 2016, which obviously authorized the creation of the CalSavers program, but it also created this new mandate on California employers. And we mentioned it briefly already, but we're just going to go over it again because, again, it's a really important takeaway. So that mandate says that any employer in the state of California with at least 5 employees, if that employer is not offering an employer-sponsored retirement plan, they'll need to register for CalSavers and facilitate the program for your employees. So what that means in real life, obviously, is employers who already have a plan in place are exempt from the mandate. Any employer who goes out and starts a private sector retirement plan before their registration deadline will be exempt from the mandate. We just ask that you let us know. And then for everyone else, we've created CalSavers as a really simple plug and play retirement savings solution that will allow employers to help their employees save for retirement automatically from their paycheck, but without taking on the cost and the liability that's traditionally associated with the private sector plans. So when we talk about eligibility for employers, how we determine who's eligible, we're looking at the average number of California W-2 employees that you report to EDD in any given calendar year. So every quarter, you're filing that DE-9C with EDD. We'll look at each of those 4 quarters and average them out, and that's how we determine whether or not you are eligible for the program, which is a nice way of saying subject to the mandate. So for those employers who might go up and down around that 5, sometimes you have 5 employees, sometimes you have a few, sometimes you have fewer, or for those employers who have a large number of seasonal employers, we're hoping that by going with the year's average, that would make it a little bit easier, to understand how the program works, and so that you won't be in and out of the program if your employee count goes up and down throughout the year. But in terms of employee eligibility, we wanted to make the program as inclusive as possible. So again, if you're participating through an eligible employer, if you have California W-2 wages, if you're 18 years or older, and if you have a social security number or an ITIN, you're eligible to participate in the program, and you should be included in your employer's roster of eligible employees. So what you'll notice, employers, is that there is no carve out for part-time or seasonal workers. It doesn't matter how many hours your employees work. If they're collecting a W-2 and are 18 years or older, then they're eligible for the program and should be included. That also includes any employees that you might have that are here on a visa. So they should be included also. We like to mention up front, CalSavers is not intended to replace or compete with employer-sponsored plans. As we've been saying, the purpose of this legislation was to address this retirement savings access gap that exists in the state. So if we see employers adopting, plans from the private sector, especially if we see innovation from the private sector, cheaper, better plans for employers coming out onto the marketplace, and employers are taking advantage of those, that's going to be a great thing. It's a win-win because it's addressing that access gap. And most importantly, it's giving your employees access to the tools that they need to save for their futures. So let's look at the registration deadlines for the program. It's an exciting week for us because we are actually just a couple of days away from the second registration deadline for employers with more than 50 employees. The registration deadline is tomorrow, June 30th, 2021. Employers with more than 100 employees should have registered already by September of last year. So if we have any folks in either of those two buckets, more than 100 employees or more than 50 employees, and you're not quite sure what to do, please connect with us. We are looking forward to getting folks up and running and in compliance before the penalties begin for those Wave 1 employers in particular. But the last deadline is for businesses with 5 or more employees. You'll have until June 30th of next year to register for the program and begin facilitating it for your employees. But you should note that we launched the program statewide on July 1st in 2019. And since then, it's been open for all eligible employers. So we're encouraging very strongly employers, even in that 5 or more bucket, to connect with us early and get up and running early. Not only will that mean that you're in compliance early, you won't have to worry about it come the deadline, but it also means that your employees get a head start saving for their retirement. So the sooner you get on board, the sooner they can start saving with us. Just in case we have any folks on this webinar or listening live who have less than 5 employees, remember we're talking about an average of employees that you report to EDD throughout the year. But if you have an average of less than 5 employees, you are not subject to the mandate. So you as an employer can't register for the program. But we did want folks in that situation, either employees of very small businesses or, self-employed folks, gig workers, contractors. We wanted you to participate if you wanted to. So you can actually go to CalSavers.com and open your own account and start saving on your own whenever you'd like. So, drilling down in your Senate district, we've identified, more than 8,000 eligible employers in your Senate district. And then that represents almost 250,000 employees. So, potentially huge impact for Senator Hurtado's constituents. And we're excited to help folks in the Central Valley save for their retirement. I mentioned that, one of the options for employers is to go out and find a private sector plan, or if you already have one, you're exempt from the mandate. This is a list of the qualifying plans that employers can use instead of CalSavers. This is posted to our website in the frequently asked questions section. So if you're not sure if the plan that you are offering your employers would count for an exemption or not, feel free to go CalSavers.com and under the frequently asked questions for employer eligibility, you'll find this list. Couple of things that, as part of the introduction, I think are important to talk about up front, just key features of the program. I mentioned it briefly earlier. It is designed as an automatic enrollment program. It is completely voluntary for your employees because they can opt out or opt back in at any time. But it is important to note that it is designed as automatic enrollment. So once an employer creates a roster of their eligible employees, Employees will have 30 days to decide if they want to participate in the program or not. If they do not opt out, then they'll get automatically enrolled in the program at the default settings. And we're going to talk about that in more detail in a minute, but I just think it's really important to cover upfront or to mention upfront. The second thing that we're really proud about, and I think is a key feature that's good to talk about upfront, is that we've designed the program as a public-private partnership. We think it's a really good example of how, government and the private sector can work together to address real-world problems. You should know that the program is professionally managed and advised by professional financial service companies with oversight from a transparent public board chaired by the state treasurer. We'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in just a minute, but what that means is that employers and your employees get the expertise of these financial firms, but with oversight, from a transparent public board, which we think is really important and should help some folks feel more comfortable about participating in the program. Third thing, we're doing this at zero cost to the state and taxpayer and the employer. We're operating on a small startup loan that we got from the general fund, which we're required to pay back with interest as the program gets up and running. But the program is going to be entirely self-sustaining based on the very small fee that we charge the participants, the savers in the program. As I mentioned, and we'll mention again and again, there are no fees for employers. The program is going to be self-sustaining on a small fee that we charge the savers. And we'll talk about that in more detail in just a little bit too. So that covers the background of the program, that covers the mandate and, the important registration deadlines. But the next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was what it means for employers, right? If an employer were to register for CalSavers and facilitate the program, what are their responsibilities and duties to maintain or to facilitate the program for their employees? But first, I want to mention sort of what we had in mind when we designed the program. One of the first things we did when the legislation passed in 2016 was gather a group of stakeholders, especially, folks in the employer community, small business owners, local chambers, stuff like that. And what we wanted to know from employers in particular was, what is it about programs on the existing market that make it difficult for employers to offer retirement savings benefits for their employees? And over again, they'd cite these same three hurdles. It's the administrative burden, it's the fees, and it's the fiduciary liability. So we've designed CalSavers to address all three of those things. We tried to make it as easy as possible for employers to facilitate. Hopefully you'll see some evidence of that as we go through the employer's responsibilities. I said it before, I'm going to keep saying it. There are no fees for employers, no out-of-pocket expenses for employers. The only cost for employers is going to be a little bit of administrative time that it'll take to incorporate the CalSavers process into your payroll process. But the feedback that we're getting from employers who are already participating is that it's very easy and fits very seamlessly into an employer's existing payroll process. And then, of course, there's the fiduciary liability. If an employer is sponsoring their own retirement plan, they're responsible. They have to choose the fees and the investments, and they're responsible for monitoring those over time. And if something goes wrong, they're potentially liable. But because with CalSavers, employers are not the sponsors of the plan, so you don't take on that fiduciary liability. It's our small staff at the state treasurer's office, the board, and our relevant contractors who have taken on that fiduciary responsibility. It's our job to make sure that the program operates in the best interest of the savers. So really what we've done here is we've taken on the role of the employer by choosing the administrator and choosing the investments, which is something, that you as an employer would have to do yourself if you were to do it with a private sector plan, and making those decisions for you so you're not responsible for them. So what does an employer have to do if they decide to register for CalSavers and facilitate this program for your employees? Well, that sums up the first two steps, right? The first step is to register by your state required deadline, and then you'll take a few minutes to set up your account. Feedback from employers is that this process has taken 10, 15 minutes or less, but really it's just a matter of going to our website, calsavers.com, creating a username and password, telling us a little bit about how you do your payroll so that we can get that process set up for you. The next step, within 30 days of registering, you're going to need to submit a roster of your eligible employees. So again, that's all of your employees if they're collecting a W-2, if they're 18 years or older and have a Social Security number and ITIN. So that'll include, again, all of your part-time employees, any seasonal employees that are currently on your staff would be included in that roster. And then employers will be required to submit employee contributions for those employees that decide to participate, that don't opt out. for each pay period. And those last two are really the only ongoing responsibilities for the employer. You're gonna continue to maintain that employee roster. So if you hire new folks, you'll want to add them to your roster as soon as possible. You have to do it within 30 days of their date of hire or eligibility. And if employees leave, you can mark them inactive. And then you'll continue to submit your employee contributions for every pay period going forward for those employees that decide to participate in the program, or I should say who don't opt out. Couple of things that employers will not experience or will not be responsible for. Again, there are no program fees for employers. Employers have no fiduciary responsibility with the CalSavers program. And employers are not allowed to make an employer contribution. This is a question we get a lot. Either, and we get it in two ways. Either, am I going to be required to make like a matching contribution, or the other way they ask it is, am I allowed to make an employer contribution? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Because it's designed as an IRA program, the only contributions that can go into the program are the employee's own payroll contributions or contributions that they make outside of their payroll. So employers are not allowed to do a match or any other contributions. Let's see, a couple of things employers are not supposed to be doing. Employers should not encourage or discourage participation in CalSavers. Really, I see the employer's role as factual, educational. We're a CalSavers participating employer. Keep an eye out for some information from CalSavers about how the program works, and that's sort of it. Of course, employers shouldn't be providing advice about investment options, taxes, or participation in the program. Employers, again, aren't managing the investment options, processing distributions, or managing any of the changes that employees might make when they're interacting with the program. That includes changing their address, adding a beneficiary, or changing their contribution rate or their investment choices. And we did that on purpose. We wanted to make facilitation as easy as possible for the employer. So, we'll work directly with the employees to make any changes they might need to make. And then, of course, we'll communicate any relevant changes to the employer before they have to run their payroll. For example, if an employee changes their contribution rate, we'll send the employer an email a certain number of days before they run their payroll so that they can make any adjustments if they need to. Let's take a little look at the timeline for that employers should be following, again, if they choose to facilitate CalSavers for their employees. So it all begins when you receive your access code from CalSavers. Now, we've done our best to identify the employers that are subject to the mandate, and we've been sending invitations to you. Hopefully you've seen it, but that will include an access code from CalSavers. If you don't have it anymore or you haven't received one yet, just feel free to connect with us and we can look that up for you and get it to you so you can get started. But once you have your access code, you can register for the program anytime before your state required deadline. You just need two things to register for the program. You'll need your EIN and you'll need your CalSavers access code. Once you register for the program, you have 30 days to set up your account. And I think this is kind of an important thing to note for those of you employers who might be subject to the next deadline, 5 or more employees next year, June 30th, 2022. You're not required to register until that deadline, but if you do register early, then the train's on the tracks. You're sort of subject to the regulations at that point, and you'll have 30 days from your date of registration to set up your account and upload that roster of employees. So important to note, if you're not quite ready to begin facilitation, hold off on registering until you are ready, or at least until your deadline. But again, once you upload that roster, that kicks off that 30-day employee decision period. We'll talk about this in more detail in just a minute, but your employees will either do nothing, in which case they get automatically enrolled. They can customize their account by going to the website or calling us over the phone, or they can opt out. After that, your employees will be enrolled in the program. We'll enroll everybody who didn't opt out, and you as the employer can begin the payroll deductions. Usually that'll start with the first or second paycheck after that 30-day employee decision period. So that's it. That's the employer's responsibilities and timeline. For the next section, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what this means for your employees and what it looks like from the employee's perspective. And for those of you who might be interested in starting your own account with CalSavers, this will be some helpful information for you too. All right, so similar to our goals with the employers, trying to make it simple accessible for employers. We wanted to do the same thing for employees. You know, we engage with folks who work with, you know, the communities that don't have access to, or typically don't have access to, retirement benefits. You know, we typically hear that folks are looking for options that are simple, that are portable and accessible, and of course, low fee. So that was our goal with the employees, right? Create something simple, portable, and low fee for them to participate. So the simplicity starts with this automatic payroll deduction IRA. So folks can let themselves be automatically enrolled and stick with the default settings, which we think are pretty appropriate for folks depending on, you know, their age and time to retirement, or they can take the time to engage with us on our website or over our phone lines and customize their settings from our very simple menu of different options we're going to talk about in a second. We wanted to create a program that's portable and accessible. CalSavers is completely portable. A saver keeps their account even if they change jobs. You know, this is in contrast to a traditional 401k or employer-sponsored plan, which is typically tied to the employer. In this case, the account is tied to the employee, and they'll take it with them anywhere they go. You know, as we roll out these deadlines, chances are they might end up at another CalSavers participating employer, in which case, at their new employer, they can just start making contributions after their 30-day employee decision period into their existing CalSavers account. They're not going to have separate accounts for each employer. We also chose a Roth IRA as a default, and I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but that allows for tax and penalty-free withdrawal of contributions. So there's a little bit of accessibility there. We thought that employees might feel more comfortable participating in a program if they knew they had access to some of their money in an emergency. And then I mentioned that the program is self-sustaining based on the small fee that we charge our savers. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in just a second, but savers will pay a small fee to cover the program administration and investment management costs. But again, it's very competitive now and is designed to get lower as the program grows. We'll talk about that again in just a minute. So I mentioned it briefly before. There are two ways for savers to join the program. Probably the most common way people will join the program is through their employer. You know, once their employer submits their roster of eligible employees, we'll send out communications, which will include an access code for your employees to be able to come to the website, check it out, learn about it, and customize it if they want to. But the other way for folks to join, as I mentioned earlier, if you're not working for an eligible employer, or if you want to get a head start, you can just go to calsavers.com and start your own account whenever you're ready. But again, since most people are going to join through their employer, we're going to focus a little bit more on what that process looks like for your employees if you are an employer. So let's look at that timeline, but this time let's look at it from the employee's perspective. And again, your employees' CalSavers experience starts when you as the employer upload their roster of eligible employees into the CalSavers employer portal. When that happens, CalSavers is going to begin immediately to send notifications to your employees. If you give us their email address, that'll be our preferred method. We'll send communications to them by email, but if we don't have an email address, we'll send it by US mail to their mailing address. But we send at least 3 communications to employees between that upload of the roster and the end of the 30-day employee decision period. But 30 days after being added, employees that don't opt out will be automatically enrolled into the program, and employers can begin initiating those payroll deductions. But let's dive in a little bit deeper into these 30 days, the employee decision period. They'll have three options, and we went over these briefly, but we're going to talk about them in a little bit more detail. Option number 1 is they do nothing, in which case they will get automatically enrolled at our default setting, or we call them the standard choices. We'll talk about those in detail in just a moment. Option number 2, they customize their account, right? Each of those communications that we send them says, hey, we're CalSavers, come to our website, check us out, give us a call, check us out, and update your settings if you choose to do that. Option number 3, they opt out. And we've even tried to make that part as easy as possible. There are a couple of different ways employees can opt out. They can call the 800 number, and it's a really simple IVR system, so they don't even have to talk to someone. Just punch in a few numbers and they can opt out. If they get the email notification from us, they can just click on the opt out. It'll bring them to our website and they can opt out online. Or there is a paper form that they can sign and send back to us But the good news about that for employers is that you're not responsible for tracking the opt-outs. They'll do that directly with CalSavers, and then we'll let you know before you start running your payroll who's in, who's out, and how much they want deducted from their paycheck if they are going to participate. So let's talk a little bit more about those the standard or default settings, and then talk about ways that folks can customize their account. So I mentioned earlier, the program default account type is a Roth IRA. So for those folks who might be a little bit less familiar with what that means that the contributions that employees make are going in after they pay taxes on it. And there's a couple of really good benefits of that. Number one is that all of the growth that they achieve over their career, when they reach retirement age and start pulling that money out, they never have to pay taxes on it because they've already paid taxes on it. So all of the growth that they achieved, if they deposited $10 when they were 25, and that is now worth $40 or $50, they don't have to pay any taxes on the investment gains. The other benefit I mentioned briefly is that, because they paid taxes on the way in, folks can actually withdraw their contributions before they reach retirement age without paying taxes or penalties. And again, we thought it was really important for folks who maybe have never experienced participating in a program like this, that, they would feel more confident participating, knowing that, if they had an emergency, car broke down, they have to move and they need first month's rent or something like that, they can actually withdraw their contributions without paying taxes or penalties. As far as contribution rate, so if a person doesn't choose their own contribution rate, we'll start them off at 5%, and it'll include an automatic escalation feature, which means we're going to raise their contribution rate automatically 1% every year until it reaches 8%. The idea here is to start folks off with something that is hopefully relatively comfortable, a small amount, but nudge them up gently over the years so that they can achieve greater retirement savings over time. And then in terms of investment options, we've really built the default around an investment type that's called a target retirement fund. So these are mutual fund style investments that where the asset allocation or the mix in the investment between stocks and bonds automatically adjusts over time as people get older. So when you're younger, it's going to be a little bit more aggressive. There's going to be a little bit more stocks in your account as opposed to bonds because you have time to take a little bit of risk and be more aggressive. But we're going to automatically adjust that asset allocation every 5 years until you reach retirement age. So what that means is that the investments are automatically going to become more conservative over time as you reach retirement age and have less time to take risks or be aggressive with your investments. So for the first 30 days, everybody's contributions are going to go into a money market fund, which is designed to be liquid, gives people an escape route if they get automatically enrolled and they didn't realize it. But then they realize it after their first or second paycheck. They can call us up, they can get their money back and opt out of the program. But after those 30 days, we'll transfer all of that money into the target retirement fund, and then all subsequent contributions will go into that target retirement fund. And even in the target retirement fund, because it's a Roth IRA, people can still withdraw their contributions. It's just that, once it's in that target retirement fund, we'll have a little bit more exposure to the market, and the value of the account can go up or down based on the market. All right, so how can employees customize their account? Well, first and foremost, we know that the Roth IRA is not for everybody. Sometimes people want to be able to take a tax deduction for the current year, or sometimes people make too much money to participate in a Roth IRA. Roth IRA, the IRS did set some income limits, so if you make too much money, you actually can't participate in a Roth IRA. So for those folks, or again, for those folks who want to take a tax deduction for the current year, you can recharacterize your contributions to a traditional IRA. The good news for employers is that doesn't change anything from your perspective. No matter what, you will always send employee contributions with post-tax dollars. And then folks who do recharacterize, will work with them to submit for that, for their tax deduction when it's tax time. For contribution rates, obviously, savers have complete control over this. They can contribute anywhere from 1% to 100% of their salary as long as they stay under the IRS maximum limit, which right now is $6,000 per year for most folks, $7,000 per year if you're over 50. And then, of course, savers can turn on or off that automatic escalation feature. We actually send notifications to people so they know it's going to happen in January. and they can turn that off if they're not ready to allow their contributions to get bumped up. Lastly, customization options in terms of your investment options. You know, a lot of the research here in behavioral economics says keep it simple. If you overwhelm people with too many choices, then it becomes confusing and people get frustrated. So we wanted to keep it a very simple, light menu of investment options in addition to the target retirement fund and the money market fund, which are listed here at the top and bottom of the list. We also have a core bond fund, a global equity fund, and a sustainable balanced ESG fund. ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. So all of the underlying investments there are chosen based on, you know, whether they're environmentally friendly or whether they're good, you know, corporate citizens of the country. So you can see there, we wanted to give people options that operated on both sides of the conservative to aggressive side of the spectrum, and we wanted to give people who wanted to invest in more responsible choices, socially and environmentally responsible choices, that they had that option too. Let's see. Lots of information on this page, and I already, you know, sort of described how a lot of these investments work. Everyone's going to get a copy of the slide, so if you want to review it later, you can. But really, I wanted to focus here on these last two columns, which is the fee and the investment manager. So you'll notice that each of these investment options has a different fee based on basically how much it costs the investment manager to run it. So depending on the investment option that people choose, they'll pay anywhere between 0.83% and 0.95%. What that translates to in real dollar, and this per year, sorry. What that translates to in real dollars is 83 cents to 95 cents for every $100 they have in their account per year. And then the other cool thing about our fees, if there is anything cool about fees, is that built into the contract that we have with the program administrator, their fee automatically goes down as the program grows. So, you know, these fees will automatically go down as the program grows and reaches scale. And then the last column there, it shows you who the investment manager is for each one. You'll notice 4 out of the 5 options are managed by State Street Global Advisors. And the last option there is managed by Newton Investments. That's the ESG. But again, we thought it was important to let people know 2 things. Number one, it's not the state who is handling or investing the money. And then also, you know, you get the expertise of these professional financial firms, but with state oversight. All right. So last thing I want to share with everybody who joined us today is how you can connect with us for more information. I know I've already given you a lot, but, you know, if you wanted to follow up with any additional questions or get help getting through the process, you know, we're here for you. Resources available start with our website, calsavers.com. Tons of information there for both savers and employers, program details, tools, tips, templates, frequently asked questions, forms, things that you can share with your employees if you wanted to help, you know, spread the word among your employees as you sign up. But we get it. Sometimes you want to talk to a real person. You don't want to interact with a website. So we do have dedicated customer service lines for employers and employees. Or savers. We also have a dedicated email box for CalSavers questions. Our client service team is available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We've got bilingual, you know, native English and Spanish speakers available pretty much any time. We also have access to a language line, so we can translation service, so we can work with folks in you know, most languages, whatever language they feel comfortable working with us in. And then something that we're very, very proud of is all of the one-on-one support that we offer for both savers and employers. So we have a dedicated onboarding team based in our call center whose job it is to reach out to employers after they register and help guide them through the process to get everything set up. A lot of employers are doing it on their own because, again, we designed it to be simple. But sometimes, you know, you need a little extra help setting up the payroll or getting your roster uploaded. That team's there to help you, and we'll proactively, again, reach out to you after you sign up. We also have an in-state team of field representatives, relationship managers for CalSavers. We actually have 2 people who are based in the Northern Central Valley and 2 people who are assigned to the Southern Central Valley, who can, you know, work with employers one-on-one, help you with the registration and account setup. They're even available to go out to businesses, especially now that we reopened the state, but they can go out to your place of business and do presentations for your employees. That team is also multilingual. I mentioned we have 4 field team members who are assigned to the Central Valley. 3 of them are bilingual English and Spanish, and 1 of them can speak English, Cantonese, and Mandarin. So if your employees need that language support on a presentation in language, we're more than happy to accommodate with that. I should mention that the website is also multilingual. Both the employer and the Savers site are bilingual English and Spanish, and all of our resource pages with information about the program are available in 10 languages. And we're working on expanding that every day. So, feel free to reach out to us. If you want to get connected with your local field rep, you can just email fieldsupport@calsavers.com, tell us where you're located, and your local field rep will reach out to you to get connected on that. We also have a mobile app available for the Savers, so folks can, we understand that not everybody has access to a computer at work or sometimes even at home, but more and more of us now have smartphones. So an easy, convenient mobile way to interact with the program and check on your balance and stuff like that. So, again, no employer or saver is meant to go through the process alone. We encourage you to connect with us for more information, or if you have questions, or if you just want someone to work with you one-on-one to get you through the process, please feel free to reach out. So the last thing I want to do, I know I've been talking for a while now. I hope I'm not boring you all too much, but to sum this presentation up with 6 things to remember, to take with you. Do keep in mind employers must register by their state required deadline. I'm going to take one last opportunity to say this. There are no employer fees or employer fiduciary responsibility. The program is designed so that employers take a limited role in the process. Facilitating is easy and takes minimal time. We are so happy to hear, that's generally the feedback that we get from employers too. That means we've mostly succeeded in that goal, and we're working every day, directly one-on-one with employers, taking feedback and making sure that we're trying to adapt the program to make it as easy as possible for employers. Your employees are auto-enrolled at work if they don't opt out, but it is completely voluntary. They can opt out or opt back in at any time. And we do offer them flexible choices if they do want to customize their accounts, All right. But most importantly, again, the goal of the program is to address this access gap, to make sure, we haven't reinvented the wheel here. We're just using proven tools and bringing them to the market and making sure that they're as accessible as possible to most people. And we're really excited about the potential impact that it can have addressing this access gap and most importantly, helping people to achieve, a dignified retirement so they don't have to work until they can no longer work. So very excited about that and looking forward to working with folks to get this up and running. So thank you again to all of you who joined us today. Thank you to Senator Hurtado and your office and Treasurer Ma for joining us today for introductions. We're really excited to share this information with you. Again, no employer is meant to go through this by themselves, so please feel free to connect with us. My personal email is here, so feel free to reach out to me or use any of the contact information that I shared with you earlier. But again, thank you so much for this opportunity and for spending some time with us this afternoon. And then I will turn it over to Jacob to close this out. Thank you so much.
Sure. I want to thank everybody for jumping on. Thank you for all of our participants for making some time today. Jonathan and Carolina, you guys have been amazing to work with. And also want to give a good shout out to our good friend Treasurer Ma for jumping on and joining with us today. So with that being said, thank you for joining and everybody have a great day.